Wholeness, everyone, and welcome to another edition of We Meditate. I am your host, Ahmad Brown, aka Son of Pharaoh, and for today, I want to talk about the concept of going from duality into singularity. Duality into singularity. Um, when we understand duality, we're actually talking about division. When we talk about division, we're essentially talking about the external way of thinking where we believe something outside of ourselves can either positively or negatively change our situation. We believe in an outside influence or outside presence or outside force that can really affect how the world works. Also, we talk about the division where we believe that we're separate, individualized things that either work for or against one another, and we essentially operate without the full awareness of knowing that all things emanate from the source. It doesn't matter if it's perceived as good or perceived as bad. It all came from one thing. And so when we realize that all things come from the one thing, we will operate from a different perspective. Well, one, we'll be a lot more tolerant, but two, we will actually know how to get better control over our situations, because we will then realize that all things that are happening to us are not from some outside influence, but it's actually what's coming from within. And so understanding the principle of dualism going into singularity, I want to talk about it from a few of our theological or cosmological symbols that we operate with today. When we talk about coming to Earth, you as a human being or any type of living creature or even a plant, when it comes to the Earth, it actually has to be birthed. It has to be birthed, and it comes from some aspect of the Earth. Whether if it's a plant, there's a seed, and the seed actually is inserted into the earth, and then that seed takes root, and then it finally sprouts back up to show itself as a tree. Whether it's some type of a sea creature, it's inside of the fish or the whale's womb, and it's shot out either as an egg or an actual creature, and then it is outside, and then it begins its own life process. If you're some type of mammal, where it be dog, cat, cow, whatever, or a human being, it sits inside of a female's womb, and then it is birthed out into physicality. And so when we see things being birthed, based on a dualistic perception, we can see or perceive that, as being something separate. If you have a child, you can mistakenly be like, oh, that's my child, meaning that that's a whole new different person. And that's a dualistic perception. Or you can take the singular route and say, oh, that's me. And so that's part of the difference. So when we talk about birth, we actually have to realize that there's a chain of events that essentially are all taking place from the source that, reinforce that we're all the same thing. If we go back to with the first birth, whatever we want to conceive that as being, whether we have deep knowledge on the beginning of human origins or the origins of the universe, the first thing that came first is the thing that still is the first chain of events that rolled out everything else. So if you have, your child now, and you just do a genogram and you backtrack as far as you possibly can, it will still lead you back to one origin type human, or one origin type event. And it doesn't matter who you are, what race you are, what time you were born in. If you were to do enough research to go back and find the source of, your DNA, your family tree, things of that nature, it will all point back to the same person, or would all point back to the same thing. And this is how all of existence works. It doesn't matter if it's a planet, it doesn't matter if it's a star, it doesn't matter if it's a galaxy in and of itself. All of these things are birthed from the first event, if we even want to call it that, that continues to fuel all of existence. And so when we basically understand, our existence from this standpoint, we will reinforce the aspect of singularity, knowing that all things are just one. And so when we talk about birthing, though, let's go back to that. When we talk about birthing, we're actually talking about a full circle experience, something that has come full circle. So if you are birthed, if you were actually birthed and you come into human form, so to speak, you have actually gone through the full cycle of being, quote unquote, a god, and then come all the way down to the most minuscule form of being a microscopic piece of sperm. Again, if look up sperm, in one, ounce of sperm, I guess, it is like billions of cells of like technically little humans, so to speak. It's billions of them, and out of those billions of sperm, one makes it through and then manifests itself into a person. So if you're actually here as a human, you've actually gone through the full cycle of creation and destruction, and you're actually somewhere basically in the midpoint of the cycle again. And this is how it works. Knowing that we are spirit, having a human experience, our spirit, our individualized spirit, it is still connected to the whole, but we actually emerged from a higher awareness where we were, consciously connected to the source, of all things. And so in this higher realm, we are in the full web of consciousness. We are directly linked into the web of consciousness. So we actually go from this direct link where it is God. Again, that's just the abstract term, where it is the Almighty. We break away from that collective energy source that is bigger than all comprehension. And we come down from this higher sense, or this higher dwelling place, or this higher vibration, and we begin to shrink ourselves. And we shrink and fragment ourselves into lower and slower vibrations into reality. And so then when, as we are literally waiting in line, so to speak, in the astral plane, coming from a higher vibrational realm down to a lower vibrational realm, from a collective to an individualized piece of the collective, we wait in line in the astral plane to actually be birthed. So we literally come from the source, which is like essentially a collective of the light and the darkness. Again, an instantaneous collection of both light and darkness reverberating all at the same time. We come from this place and we break. And when we break, we actually break into the darkness. We break into the darkness. This is why the Christian scriptures talk about, in the beginning there was the darkness, and then the light hovered over the face of the deep, and then the light penetrated the darkness. This is actually talking about you, are talking about me. It's talking about the flow of how an individualized spirit leaves the collective and comes into reality. And so it breaks again from the source, which is both, and then goes down one particular channel or one flow on the cosmic cycle. And so on the flow, it goes down into the darkness, into the separated aspect of the darkness. And then to the separated aspect of the darkness, we travel from a higher all the way to lower realms, to where we are completely submerged in the darkness. And this complete submergence into the darkness is actually what can be considered the nether realm. We go all the way down into the lowest rung of the cosmic cycle, where there's essentially nothing, or there's like a void, so to speak. And then we take our light, our seed, like a plant, so to speak, and then we begin to reinsert ourselves into this darkness. We're no longer just kind of floundering in it, which again is that sea. We actually begin to consciously construct ourselves inside of the womb, inside of the darkness. And so once we begin to consciously construct inside of the darkness, we then begin the process of cycling back up the cosmic scale to the source. And so we go again from the biggest aspect of whatever we call energy, break down into the smallest, most minuscule, unseen part, and then we actually build ourselves up to be large enough to fit into the aspect of a sperm. And so once we actually are fit into the aspect of a sperm, we actually insert ourselves into a human body. And so when we insert ourselves into the human body, we insert ourselves, yes, into a physical man. And again, because this is talking about the breakdown of how the human body is a separated version of the great, the great whole. The man is the light. And so you being a part of the whole, being both light and darkness, you go down the chain into the darkness and begin the process of returning to the light. And so you, as a individualized piece of light, go into the darkness, and then reinsert yourself into a man. And then when this man connects with a woman again being, the feminine aspect of darkness, finally connects, you can travel now through the tube of time, the tube of time, which yes is the phallus, which is a portal or a hole, and reinsert yourself into the Great Mother, which again is now like you. This is you actually begin to build your consciousness. This is when you start to begin to build. So as you now are inserted into the darkness, you begin this conscious building. And so when you're consciously building now, you are forming yourself into a human person in the womb. You are now cycling yourself from a fragmented entity and now are doing it on a microscopic scale of merging the masculine and the feminine. You are merging, you're essentially reenacting the Big Bang inside of your mother's womb. And so as you begin to do so, you're doing the process of returning to the source, because now you're doing it on the realm of physicality. Looking at it from a Christian mythology point, Christian mythology confirms this, but the doctrine separates us from it. So there's that dualism and the singularity again. From the dualistic aspect, Christian mythology says that Jesus was sent or came down from heaven and came down to the earth. When we reserve this exclusively for him, this is looking at it from a dualistic standpoint. But when we look at it from the point of singularity, knowing that this is no more than a mirror story of our own selves, we will see that we are the ones who came down from the source. We are the ones who came down from quote unquote heaven. And so when we do so, we are the one who's bringing another piece of the Almighty. We are the ones bringing another piece of Emmanuel with us. And we are the ones who are responsible for living out that life once we are born. Because again, when we break away, we become again a child of the Almighty. We become a chiseled piece of the Almighty. And so as we break into this microscopic form, we begin the replica of doing the expansion of the universe. So we go from the universe itself, literally shrink down into a microscopic piece of light, a piece of unit of energy, and it is injected into the earth. And so once we are born, we begin the process of smashing the atoms again. We begin to smash the atom because once you become a human, whether you're male or female, you begin the process of living out either as a man with parts of a woman inside of you, or you begin living out as a woman with parts of a man inside of you. All of the chromosomes are present. And so as you continue to live your life, you can begin the process of spiritually colliding all of those energies with your one reenactments with people, but then two, colliding those energies internally with your psyche, because the individualized piece of the universe that you are is held in your psyche. It's in your thoughts. The thought processes that you have is the universe. And so when you consciously begin to invoke and live from a perspective of singularity, you will continue to expand just as you did before. You will continue to march around the cosmic circle, the cosmic sphere. And you will continue to go up the ladder, so to speak, or go up the side of the circle, because you already went down, which is how you became a sperm, and now you're all on your way back up. And so once we break into that, dualistic part, which is a human, we'll see it takes place again in our form. That's why we have two hemispheres of the brain. That's why we have a left side and a right side. That's why we have a physical awareness and a spiritual awareness. And that's why we have the ability to bridge the gap and bring them together. And so once we begin to bring them together, we will continue to we'll go up one more chink up the ladder, or one more step up the ladder, to where we were simply just returning back to source. And so once we begin to know how to deal with the gnosis, which is the merger of these two energies, we will continue the growth and expansion of our consciousness as we've expanded into this form. And so once we do so, we will begin to learn how to birth ourselves into the next expanded form. So again, just imagine going down the tube of time, essentially going from 12 to 1. So let's look at it like that. I'll give you, instead of being abstract, when you're at the collective whole, you are at 12 o'clock. You are part of the collective whole. You are at 12 o'clock. But when you break away to come and have a human experience, you start to descend down the side of the sphere of creation. And so you click from 12 to the 1. And so this is you delving into darkness, so to speak. And so as you continue to dig all the way down into darkness, once you get to 6, which is the bottom half, 6 is actually sex. And so once you have accomplished the 6 as a individualized spirit, that means you are actually in the form of the sperm, and you are actually in the tube of time itself via the male phallus. And so you are having the encounter of the male phallus entering into the woman, the womb. And so once the 6 happens, then next comes the 7, which is completion, meaning you have now been inserted completely into the darkness. And now you are beginning the process of expanding your light. This is the Genesis story. And so you continue to do so. And then you go from the 7 and to the 8. And so now you went from the bottom half of the sphere of time or the sphere of creation, and now you're on the upswing again. And now you're in the upswing and you hit 8 o'clock. That means completion. Means what? You are now ready to be born. And so you go from the 8 and then you hit the 9. And 9 is the flip of the 6. They're the same symbol but spinning in different directions. And so you're no longer spinning down into darkness. Which is the 6. You are now spinning outward into expansion. And so now you're actually returning into the light. You're in the upswing. And so as you continue to live your life, if you live a life where you operate from the aspect of dualism, meaning you come into birth and you forget that you were both the masculine and feminine, you forget that you were both the light and the darkness, you forget that you came from the source and you already went down into the netherworld so that you can be shrunk into a smaller place, and you're now in the middle plane of the earth, you will essentially complete your life, which is going back up to 11, and then you will get back to 12. But when you die, because you lived a life of separation, a life of dualistic thought, you will essentially repeat the cycle again. And then you will go right back to 1, and you have to descend back into the darkness again and repeat this whole cycle over. And so this is why it's called a cycle. This is why there's no such thing as death. This is when all things are life. But if you again come into earth and start to believe in the aspect of death, you're still operating on the sphere of dualism. And that's what will keep you separated from the concept of all life or all good or the all-knowingness of quote-unquote God, because you realize that quote-unquote God is all of those things at the same time. And so when you operate from that principle of dualism, you'll just repeat the cycle again and again and again until you come into a life where you finally realize that all of these things are one. And this is what singularity is. You realize that the cycle that you're on is a repetition of the same event in just different forms in infinite possibilities. And so when you stop operating from this dualistic aspect, when you stop using the stories of singularity from a dualistic standpoint, again, like externalizing, the Christian myth, externalizing the Hindu myth, externalizing, the Abrahamic myth, externalizing, all of the different cosmologies that exist, and realize that these are aspects of your own psyche somewhere on the sphere of time. You can begin to merge those events and then get to the singular thought, the singular awareness, the singular frame of reference in your consciousness. And so when you, again, cease in a lifetime, meaning you return back to 12, you will have obtained the conscious awareness of the other side, and you will not forget. And then when you don't forget, you can actually make a conscious choice to come back and repeat this again, or you can go somewhere else, or you could actually return to the source. And so this is what singularity is, the full acknowledgement of choice that you have. Realizing that you have the power to choose what you want to do with your life. You have the power to choose how you want to manifest yourself before you even get here as a human. All of the circumstances that you have are not a part of some outside source. This is not some God that has shown favor on you or some devil that is out to get you. This is the choices that you have made on the sphere of time and the karmic waging that you have done in your multiple lives based on how you have been in or out of balance. And so once you begin to realize the full conscious awareness of all of those things, you can begin to take control. Then when you begin to take control, you actually merge with submission. And again, you start to smash this conundrum or this paradox. When you begin to take full control of the awareness of consciousness, you will submit yourself back to singularity, meaning you will get back into the source of energy, the source of intellect, the source of intelligence. And so when you are operating from the source of intelligence and submitting yourself to the higher thought processes that you have and not these shrunken down individualized processes that you have, you will take that with you to the other side, and you will have the knowingness to do what you truly want to do in another life, or do what you want to do on another planet, or do what you want to do back at the source. And so this is why you want to look at things from a singular focus, so you can have the ability to choose. It's all your choice. So you can choose to be singular, or you can choose to be dualistic and divided. Whichever it is, I'm here with you, and we're all going to have fun doing it regardless. So this is We Meditate, and I am your host, Ahmad Brown. Wholeness, balance, and peace be unto you. Blessings.